The station hummed with restless voices, metal wheels grinding against the tracks, hurried footsteps scattering like broken rain. People clutched bags, tickets, and strangers brushed against each other, but in the crowd, she stood by something invisible. A gust of cold air slipped through the open platform, tugging at the red scarf around her neck. It fluttered wildly, as if it wanted to leave her behind. Her fingers tightened, knuckles pale against the worn fabric, holding it close as though it were more than cloth, as though it were memory itself. She watched, not at the train that hissed with smoke, not at the vendors shouting for attention, but at a single figure at the far end of the platform. He hadn't noticed her. Not yet. His back was turned, his stance casual, but she knew by the slope of his shoulders, by the way he adjusted his wristwatch, again and again, that it was him. Her heart clenched. The sound of it drowned the station. The scarf slipped slightly, brushing against her trembling lips. She whispered into it, though no one could hear. Not today, not like before. The crowd pressed closer, voices echoing with departures and arrivals. She felt her chest rise and fall too quickly, felt the sweat gather at her temples, despite the winter chill. Her suitcase leaned against her leg, small and battered, the handle frayed from years of running. She had carried it through storms, across borders, and yet tonight it felt heavier than ever. She stepped forward, one step, two. The sound of her boots was swallowed by the noise around her, but inside, every movement felt deafening. Her eyes never left him. She searched for his face, waiting for the moment his head would turn, waiting for recognition to strike like lightning. The scarf tugged again with the wind, brushing her cheek like a ghostly hand. She closed her eyes just long enough to steady herself, to feel the heat of that moment, rage and longing tangled together. Then, faintly, she heard it. His laugh, a low, careless sound, carried above the station's noise. Her fingers curled tight around the suitcase handle. The weight of all her waiting pressed into her bones. And yet, when his laughter faded into the crowd, she didn't move closer. Not yet. Her breath broke into the cold air. "Do you remember me?" she asked him silently, though her lips never moved. The scarf wrapped itself tighter around her neck, as if answering. She opened her eyes, the train roaring into the platform with fire and thunder. Its brakes screamed, its lights burning her vision. The crowd surged forward, and in that swelling chaos, her hand loosened. The scarf slipped a little, crimson against the gray smoke, like blood waiting to be spilled. The train screeched to a halt, doors sliding open with a metallic sigh. Warm air spilled out, carrying scents of coffee, leather, and lives about to change direction. People hurried forward, children running into open arms, lovers kissing without shame, old men clasping hands. Like survivors, she watched them all with quiet eyes. Her scarf slipped loose against her shoulder. She caught it quickly, pressing it close. It wasn't just cloth, it was his gift. A birthday long ago, when laughter still belonged to her. Red beak, as he said. It suited her fire, her stubbornness. She had loved that word back then, fire. Now it burned differently. Her father's voice drifted back, quiet and tired, from a memory that still smelled of oil and dust. "Don't ever wait for people to save you, child. Carry your own weight." He'd said it the night he fixed her first suitcase, sewing its handle while she held the lantern. The same suitcase leaned against her leg, now frayed, patched, but alive, just like her. She remembered how light it once felt, filled only with clothes and books. Tonight, it was heavy with things no one else could see. Debts, silence, bruises left on the heart. A mother passed with her son tugging at her coat, laughter spilling between them. The girl's chest tightened. She imagined herself as that boy, once, tugging at her mother's hand, asking where his father had gone. No answers then, no answers now. Only shadows, only men who left and men who destroyed. Her eyes lifted again. Across the platform, he stood like a mark against the noise, still turned away, still unaware. She studied him the way one studies fire, afraid of its warmth, more afraid of its burn. His hand rose to his wristwatch again, always adjusting, as if time itself had betrayed him. And then he turned, just slightly. Not enough to see her fully, but enough for her to catch the sharp line of his jaw, the curve of a mouth she once knew too well. Her breath snagged. She clutched the scarf as if it might steady her shaking. He saw her. She knew it. The glance was too brief to be chance, too sharp to be casual. His eyes lingered a moment longer than strangers allow. Then he looked away. But it wasn't dismissal. It was calculation. The station swallowed the silence between them. but in her chest it rang louder than any train horn. She shifted her suitcase, suddenly uncertain. Was he waiting for her to come closer? Or was he daring her to? Around them, reunions kept unfolding. Goodbyes stretched out in hurried kisses and waves. She alone stood rooted, trembling between the past and the platform's edge. Her lips parted, a word almost escaping, a goodbye, perhaps, or a curse. Instead, she hesitated, caught in that moment when the scarf slipped again, red against the smoke. A whistle cut through the air, sharp as a blade. The platform stirred again, but the girl stood still, her pulse louder than the thunder beginning to roll in the distance. Gray clouds gathered above, swallowing the last of the daylight. The scarf at her throat lifted and twisted in the restless wind, brushing her lips like a secret she wasn't ready to speak. He had moved closer. Not much, but enough. The gap between them was no longer a crowd, but a fragile space heavy with everything unsaid. She let her eyes travel over him, hesitant, afraid, unwilling to admit what she saw. His coat was worn at the cuffs, frayed threads curling loose. His shoes carried the dull shine of too many miles, their soles darkened by rain and streets she would never know, and then she caught it. A glimpse as he shifted, slipping something into his pocket. A photo, for a He lifted it slightly, almost an offering, almost a taunt. The smallest smile touched his mouth, unreadable, unbearable. Some people carry more than just bags, she thought, her chest aching. They carry silence. A cough behind her broke the fragile spell. An old woman waiting by the bench shook her head softly, as if she had seen too many stories like this, too many girls frozen by men who knew how to hold their weakness in their hands. A young man glanced at them, whispered something to his friend, and the two exchanged a look that stung like pity. Society was always watching, always judging, always writing endings for women who hadn't yet spoken. Her knees wavered. She wanted to scream, to demand why he still had this hold, why her fire burned only when reflected in his shadow. Instead, she stood in the rain, eyes wide, lips trembling. He stepped forward, just enough for her to see the rain slide off his lashes, the faint tremor in his hand as he held the scarf. For the first time, doubt flickered in him too. "Yours," he said softly, voice nearly lost in the thunder. It was not a question, not even a statement. It was something in between. She reached out, then stopped midway. Her hand hovered in the stormy air, trembling inches from the cloth, from him, from everything she had sworn to destroy. Her silence said more than words ever could. That the scarf trembled between them, rainwater dripping from its edges, when she finally reached for it. But before her fingers could touch, he let it fall into her palm, deliberate, careful, as if surrendering something heavier than cloth. Her breath shook as she drew it close, the fabric wet and cold against her skin. And then, without thinking, her eyes lifted again. That was when she saw it. A folder slipped from his suitcase as he adjusted the handle. Papers scattered, caught in the wet wind. She crouched instinctively to help, her hand brushing across the bold black letters stamped on the page. Her heart froze. The company name, the one she had circled weeks ago, desperate for work, desperate for survival. The one she had nearly prayed to. And beneath the logo his signature, not a clerk, not a manager, not a shadow. Owner. Her lungs caved in. The scarf suddenly felt like a chain, each thread stitched with betrayal. When she looked up, his face was unreadable. No denial, no excuse, just the weight of watching her realize. The rain hammered harder, drowning out voices, swallowing the station into a blur. She wanted to run, to vanish, but her legs rooted deeper into the ground. This was no chance encounter. This was a collision, with fate, or cruelty, or both. Her father's words returned, cutting through the storm. "Don't ever wait for people to save you, child. Carry your own weight." But what if her weight was already in his hands? She clutched the scarf, meaning to throw it back at him, but her fingers refused. That was when she noticed the corner of the photo peeking from his wallet again, the little girl's face, the smile blurred by time, a daughter, and the scarf. Her breath stalled. It wasn't only hers. It had once belonged to the child. A relic he had passed on, twisted into love, into memory, into a weapon. Some people carry more than just bags. They carry silence. The line echoed again, louder, this time, until it rang inside her chest like a bell that couldn't be unrung. Her silence broke. Tears blurred with rain as she whispered, more to herself than him. Not today. Not like before. The same words she had spoken at the beginning, now circling back. A loop tightening around her. This was the point of no return. To take the job meant chains. To refuse meant hunger. To stay meant drowning. To leave meant war. The train doors slid open again, spilling light onto the wet platform. He stepped aside, as though inviting her, as though daring her. Her grip on the scarf hardened. She walked forward past him, past hesitation into the waiting carriage, into a decision that would change everything. Scarf fluttered between them, suspended like a verdict neither was ready to give. The train lurched forward, its doors sealing behind her with a hollow slam. The platform slid away, blurred by rain and smoke. She stood near the window, breath shallow, scarf clutched so tightly her knuckles whitened. Her reflection trembled against the glass, half shadow, half memory. Then, a voice, low, steady, too close. "You never were one to walk away." Her body stiffened. Slowly, she turned. He was there, seated across from her, rain still dripping from his coat, eyes fixed on her like she was both answer and accusation. She had chosen the carriage, but he had chosen her. Fate or manipulation no longer mattered. The scarf dangled from her hand, red against the dull gray of the train's light. He leaned forward, his gaze lingering on it, softer now, but no less dangerous. "It was hers," he said finally. "My daughter's. She loved it, and when she was gone, I gave it to you, because you carried her fire." The words struck like stones, For years she had wrapped herself in that scarf, thinking it was proof of lovers theirs, something worth bleeding for. Now she saw the truth. She had been living as a ghost, filling the space of another child who could never return. "You didn't love me," she whispered, voice trembling. "You loved her through me." He didn't deny it. His silence was confirmation, heavier than any blow. The train thundered on, rattling like a heartbeat out of control. She pressed her forehead to the cold window, fighting for air. Rage burned, hot, but beneath it grief, betrayal, a hollowing ache. Her father's voice rose again, clearer than ever. "Carry your own weight." For the first time, she understood. She stood, her hands shaking as she lifted the scarf. For a moment, it hung between them, a bridge of red silk, rain-stained and worn. His eyes softened, expecting her to return it, to carry the memory for him, as she always had. Instead, she let it fall to the floor of the carriage. The fabric lay there, abandoned, no longer a chain. The gesture cut deeper than any blade. She had given it back not to him, but to the silence that had birthed it. His lips parted, a flicker of surprise breaking through the mask he always wore. For the first time, he looked small, almost human. "So, that's it," he said, voice raw. "You're leaving me with nothing." She met his gaze, steady now. "No, I'm leaving you with what was always yours." The train screeched into the next station, brakes crying against iron. She picked up her suitcase, lighter somehow, without the scarf, without the weight of his shadow. As the doors opened, she stepped out, the rain welcoming her once more. Behind her, he remained seated, eyes on the red cloth at his feet, a relic of love, loss, and the fire he could never claim again. The platform was crowded, alive, the same as it had been when it all began, but this time, she was the one moving forward, while he was left behind. Not every stranger you help is meant to stay, but some leave you changed forever. The rain had eased by the time she left the station. Streets glistened under scattered lamps, every puddle holding fragments of broken light. She walked slowly, suitcase dragging lightly against the cobblestones. The scarf was gone, left where it belonged, but she did not feel bare. For the first time, the night air touched her neck without weight, without memory. She passed cafes, closing their shutters, a bookstore dimming its lamps, the murmur of ordinary lives returning home. Once, she would have envied them. Tonight, she simply observed. The world was still moving, indifferent yet alive. And she was a part of it again. Her steps carried her to a small rented room on the edge of the city. Inside, the silence was warm, not hollow. She placed her suitcase on the floor, unlatched it, and carefully set aside what remained of her journey. In the drawer of the nightstand, she left only a single folded ticket, the one from the train she chose not to run from. Not a trophy, not a wound, just proof that she had decided. She sat by the window, the night pressing against the glass. A child's laughter echoed faintly from a street below, mixing with the faint sound of rain dripping from the eaves. It reminded her of something she had once heard long ago, in a voice no longer alive in her world. "Sometimes love is not romance, it's recognition." Her throat tightened, but this time the tears did not fall. Recognition, yes, she finally understood. He had seen in her what he had lost. She had seen in him what she had feared. They had mirrored each other's wounds, not their salvation. She breathed deeply, her hands steady against her knees. For years, her life had been defined by that scarf, by his shadow. Now, there was only her, fragile but unbroken, staring at a city that did not know her name, yet welcomed her steps, all the same, on the quiet. She allowed herself a small, uncertain smile. She had not won, nor had she lost. What mattered was that she had chosen to leave, to let go, to carry only her own weight forward. The night deepened, folding itself gently around her. She leaned back, closed her eyes, and let the silence rest, without fear. And in that stillness, a thought rose, neither comfort nor sorrow, but something raw, unfinished, alive. We do not always destroy the people who break us. Sometimes, we outgrow them. Manned, that is the sharper revenge.